Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Taylor. Cody, how are you on this gloomy Sunday morning?
Gloomy is right, man. It seems like people all over the place are getting hit with frickin' snow or rain. Kentucky's flooding. Parts of West Virginia are flooding. It's a crazy time up here in the northeast United States, but I'm doing all right, James. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Looking forward to single-digit temperatures all week long. That's going to make work just wonderful.
Yeah,
but
can't wait for that.
Here's the plus side of this. I have to remind myself every time we have a brutal winter like this, is this just devastates the tick population. And when you have dogs, that's a wonderful thing. So this will kill off many of those insects that are not nice to our dogs. And we love dogs here on Steelers by the Lake.
We do love dogs. A lot, that we might add. With that being said, James, it's going to be a cold one. You want to know what is also a cold one? It's a cold day in Kansas City. They went home with no Super Bowl trophy. We're going to talk about, break that down a little bit. We're going to break down how these teams built their teams up, and lessons learned for team building, because Pittsburgh kind of needs to rebuild a Super Bowl winning team again. So
yeah, I think there's a lot that Pittsburgh should learn from this, right? So all year long, the Eagles were one of the most efficient teams at running the football and one of the best teams at it. And they started by building their offensive line. Lots of high draft picks, and then they hit on a few guys in free agency, with Mekhi Becton being a former first-round pick of the New York Jets. Didn't work at offensive tackle. They had the foresight to move him to guard. Had excellent success there, right? Same kind of idea with Jordan Mailata on the left side. He was a former rugby player. They saw the potential. They turned him into a left tackle, and he's one of the best left tackles in the entire NFL. It's a huge, very strong offensive line, and that's one of the reasons that their tush-push is such an effective weapon in short yardage situations and darn near unstoppable. They almost never miss on a conversion when they use the tush-push because of how huge and how strong these guys are.
Yep.
So that's number one. And I think Pittsburgh is along the right lines on that. Last couple of years with a lot of high round picks, 2 first-round picks at offensive tackle, a 2nd-round pick at center, and then a 4th-round pick at guard. The investments are coming there. What are the final pieces? Are those 4 guys the final pieces? Only time will tell, but at least the investment is strong there in that situation to begin with. Yeah. The second thing that I thought was a huge takeaway from this game was their ability to not be one-dimensional. Even though the running game didn't work in this game, they stuck to it so that they wouldn't be one-dimensional and predictable on offense. I think too many times in the NFL, when your running game doesn't work, people just stop trying to use it completely, and then the defense knows what's coming, and you can kind of pin your ears back and go after the quarterback, and you know, well, it's a pass play every single play. They didn't do that, even though the run game was not effective. They stuck to it. They kept on getting their 2- and 3-yard runs, which made Kansas City's defense stay honest, which just opened all kinds of holes in the passing game. And really, honestly, we should really be looking at how a quarterback scrambles when a pocket breaks down, right? Jalen Hurts was just masterful in this game of scrambling when there was nowhere to throw the ball, but he didn't do it in the way that the Steelers quarterbacks did last year. It seemed like every time a pocket broke down for Justin Fields or for Russell Wilson, they would kind of like roll to the outside and then go up the field. Jalen Hurts just kept on finding an area between the guards. There was always somewhere inside between the tackles that he could sneak and go straight forward into the gut of the defense, and it was 10, 15 yards almost every time. So where you scramble is just as important as when you scramble. and Jalen Hurts just showed everybody that. So I think that's a lot of it, but also that defensive line was just incredible for them. I understand that they registered a pressure on 38% of the pass plays in the Super Bowl, and just was merciless and never allowed Patrick Mahomes to get comfortable. They didn't even start scoring points until the game was over, basically.
Yeah, they Philly only blitzed one time that entire game, and it got called back to a penalty.
Yeah, it was a 4-man rush that was extremely effective because you had the right guys in place that could get after the quarterback. And a different guy every time almost. Sweat had a huge game. Milton Williams had a huge game on the inside. He's going to be a free agent too, and somebody that would fit Pittsburgh's scheme quite well. Just saying, since they need an upgrade over Larry Ogunjobi.
Yep.
But these are the things that you should be looking at. That, and then more recently, like you look at last year's draft, what were the final pieces that maybe put that defense over the top? They had a great pass rush already, right?
Yep.
They went and got a corner in the first round and a corner in the second round and partnered those guys with Darius Slay, who's already a top-tier corner. And just like that, they had a secondary that could put the clamps on a good wide receiver core.
Yep.
Cooper DeJean graded out.
Wide receiver
core. Cooper DeJean graded out as one of the highest rated corners in the entire NFL this year. Yep. And then he goes and gets himself a pick six, just like I predicted on the Hardcore Network morning show. So
that you did.
That's a fun one for me. But yeah, I think that Pittsburgh's on the right path. And it's going to be frustrating for Steelers fans that say, the offense isn't good enough. The offense isn't good enough. And I agree with you. It isn't. But I really think that the focus this year needs to be on that defensive line because of how strong this defensive line group is in the NFL draft, that is. And then also the secondary. Because I think you have one good piece already there with Joey Porter Jr., but you need at least one more.
Well, and so here's what we're going to break down. Kansas City on their out of their offensive starting 11. How many do you think they drafted?
They drafted Creed Humphrey. They drafted Patrick Mahomes. I think they drafted Kelsey too. And then if Xavier Worthy's a starter, him also. Maybe one of the tackles, like 5 of the starting offensive players, maybe?
6.
Because
Isaac Pacheco as well.
And
the other one you missed was Trey Smith, their right guard.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yep. I mean, Tooney was free agency. Orlando Brown was free agency. I mean, how many of those wide receivers free agency?
Orlando Brown isn't even on the list, but yeah.
Yeah, because he was on the IR most of the year.
Yep. Jawan Taylor was 2023 free agency. Mike Kalindo, free agency 22. Thuney was 21. Juju technically counted as a starter. Free agency in 24. Same thing with Hollywood Brown in 24. If you look at the opposite side, guess how many players were drafted by the Eagles on offense?
Oh, man, it's going to be most of them. Well, it's going to be easier to go the opposite way. So A.J. Brown was not. Saquon Barkley was not.
There's another wide receiver.
Becton was not. I've got 3 for sure.
3 for sure that weren't?
That were not drafted by them, yeah.
So there was 4 total that weren't drafted. So 7 total drafted. They obviously got Saquon Barkley in free agency, yep. A.J. Brown in a trade, Jahan Dotson in a trade with the Commanders.
Okay, they considered him the starter.
Yep, and because 3 wide receivers. And Mekhi Becton, excuse me.
Mekhi
Becton in 2024 free agency. And then obviously Barkley we talked about. So 7 guys. Jalen Hurts was a draft pick. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, draft pick. Dallas Goedert, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson all drafted. I thought that was a really cool breakdown. And same thing kind of with the defensive side. Guess how many defensive starters? Did I do defense? I don't know if I did defense yet. I didn't do defense. Oh, I did. Get 8 guys on defense for Kansas City. They drafted 8 of them. That would be George Karlaftis, whatever his name is.
Yep.
Chris Jones,
Yep.
Mike Dana, Nick Bolton, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Cameron Connor, and Brian Cook. And then they got Justin Reed in 2022 free agency, Drew Tranquil in 23 free agency, and Tershawn Wharton in 2020 free agency. Now, if you again look at the Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia had 6 guys drafted on defense: Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith. Their entire front 4 drafted. Their 2 starting outside corners, Quinton Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, drafted. Everyone else, the interior the interior linebackers and the safeties all came from free agency. CGJ 2024 free agency, Reed Blankenship 2022 free agency, Oren Burks 2024 free agency, Zach Bond 2024 free agency, and then Darius Slay was from a 2020 draft with the trade with the Lions. So just interesting to see how they've kind of put that together. Overall, the team combined drafted 27 of their 44 starters combined. So
it's a good percentage.
It's a very good percentage.
Yeah, you need to make sure you're hitting on your draft picks. That shows the importance of it, right? Because you can't afford to just go out and get everybody in free agency, because then you're paying top dollar on all these guys. So you absolutely have to hit on draft picks. It's extremely important. Now, here's another fun one for you, Cody. Of the top 10 draft picks in the NFL that were quarterbacks, how many quarterbacks do you think and I'm going to give you a clue here, Eli Manning is going to be listed in this group, right? So the same draft class as Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay.
How many guys were drafted top 10 and then won a Super Bowl with the team they were drafted with? Eli counts. How many since then?
Are we counting Tom Brady multiple times? Oh, wait, Tom Brady wasn't top 10.
Top 10 draft pick.
Okay, hang on.
And I'm bringing this up, and while you're thinking about it, I'm just going to talk a little bit so we don't have dead air. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because a lot of people say that Pittsburgh's never going to be bad enough to draft high enough to get their franchise quarterback. And this is a little bit of insight behind this.
I'm gonna say 2.
It's 0.
Oh.
Eli was the last one top 10 drafted by his team. Pat Mahomes was number 11, but the Chiefs were actually 27 that year and traded all the way up to 11 to get him.
Gotcha.
Josh Allen was a similar jump. The Bills were in like the late 20s and traded way up into the low teens in order to get him. Not that he's won a Super Bowl yet, but he's a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And that just kind of goes to show there's way more guys that are getting drafted that are quarterbacks that are top 10 that don't ever win a Super Bowl with their team than there are that actually do.
Yeah, so I have one more question for you, turning this around, kind of, because we're talking about the draft. Out of all the teams in the NFL, what teams have the highest percentage of first and second round picks that are starters on their roster?
Man, I would think the Eagles are real high in that list.
Eagles are second at 90%.
Yeah, they nail it. What about the Ravens? I feel like the Ravens draft really well.
Ravens are tied for 10th at 70%.
So they do draft well. Percentage of give me the question.
First and second round picks that are starters on the teams that drafted them.
Within is there a certain amount of years? This
is on their team.
Okay.
First and second round picks on the team that drafted them. What percentage of the NFL teams first and second round picks are starters on that team?
So the Eagles were number 2. It's got to be somebody who's consistently good. Otherwise, you're not hanging on to the players.
If you process that a little more, or is it someone who's just consistently bad that they keep using their first and second round picks?
Well, you told me who it is. Is it the Browns then?
No, the Browns are actually tied for 17th at 60%.
Oh, they're right in the middle of the pack. Where's Pittsburgh on that?
Pittsburgh is tied for third at 80%.
Wow, that's way better than I thought it was going to be honest. Who's number one?
The Chicago Bears.
Oh, wow.
At 91%.
Yeah, I guess you just keep on drafting guys that don't make a difference.
Yep. I mean, that's kind of where my brain went with this, but it was cool to see. It's cool in this line of thinking to see that bad teams can still use their first and second round starters and either use them improperly or not have the right coaching staff or,
or
whatever.
Just evaluate the talent.
Yeah. So the top 10 going in order. So Chicago Bears at 91, Philly at 90, Steelers and Saints and Buccaneers tied for third with 80%. Then you have a tie for sixth place with the Indianapolis Colts and the Los Angeles Chargers at 78%. Falcons sit alone at 8 with 73%. Denver Broncos at 9 with 71%. And then you have the Ravens and the Texans tied for 70%.
I'm actually quite stunned that the Ravens are that low on the list.
Yeah. But Washington Commanders are last at 36%.
Yeah, they just finally started having success this year, so I guess that doesn't surprise me.
Yep. But that was just a cool little breakdown of that.
I wonder if part of the issue for the Ravens is that a lot of this talent is getting to the end of their rookie contracts and then they can't afford to keep them.
Could be. Very well.
Because they draft well, man. I always hate their draft classes because it's a lot of guys I wanted Pittsburgh to take.
Yep. Very well could be.
So, speaking of team building and kind of going forward with things, Pittsburgh's moved on officially from defensive backs coach or secondary coach, whatever you would like to call him, Grady Brown. He's been with the team for a couple of years now, and he is officially no longer a Pittsburgh Steelers coach. With the new coach coming in, Gerald Alexander, who was an assistant defensive backs coach for us previously, he's taking on that role, so they didn't need two guys in the role. Gerald Alexander is a former NFL safety, so that'll be a specialty of his is coaching up the safeties, which I'm excited about. And I think the most important thing that they can do to make the new coach look better than the old coach is get a better number two corner. I really love the other three pieces in the starting four secondary here. Joey Porter Jr., I think, can develop into an elite number one. Right now, he's looking like a good number one who has some bad games once in a while where he has a bunch of holding penalties.
Yep.
Minka still has shown the playmaking ability, but not as much. And Deshaun Elliott started the season off with you comparing him to Troy Polamalu. So that shows how hot of a start he had to the season, and I thought played very well overall. You have to get a good number two corner so that Minka does not have to babysit that side all season long again.
Yep.
It's extremely important. And I think you can roll with Beanie Bishop. I think you could do a lot worse than Beanie Bishop at the nickel corner spot. But I don't think you can count right now that Corey Trice is going to be the answer. You just haven't seen him on the field enough to be able to definitively say he can be your number two.
Yep. Nope, I agree with you there. You want to know who you can say that can't be on the team right now? Preston Smith.
He's not allowed.
Preston Smith has been cut, saves $13.4 million versus the cap. So that is a massive saving. Pittsburgh will have some play money to do with free agency this year. I hope and expect them to be active.
They will be. They will be because they've got some big holes to fill, starting with quarterback, obviously.
Yep.
And then the next expected move is the Larry Ogunjobi to be released. A lot of folks talking about that. I've been talking about that for like 2 years now, but they just weren't in a position to move on from him. It has finally looked like that is a glaring enough issue on that defensive front that they're going to need to move on from him. But other coaching news, Cody, we've got a new inside linebackers coach.
We do, named Scott McCurley. Scott was a linebacker coach for Dallas for the last 5 years. Excited to see a new face come in anytime that happens. I'm just hoping that I'm hoping there's different things. Like we got to get, different things in there. I think it was it Julian Edelman on a podcast recently said that Pittsburgh is still running the same defensive look that we gave him when he was with Tom Brady. So that was a little frustrating Now I don't expect anything to change with a linebacker coach per se. But hopefully getting someone new in there will help and benefit us a little bit. So I'm hoping we can see something different there.
Yeah, and you have to wonder how many mollies he popped before doing that show, hanging out with Wes
Jeez.
Welker too much or something there, because they're very clearly not running even remotely close to the same defense. He was talking about how he always had his biggest games against Pittsburgh because he knew if they lined up in a certain formation, he'd get a linebacker covering him. We have not had the linebackers covering wide receivers issue in years now in Pittsburgh, and that's because we've moved on from the Dick LeBeau defense, 6 years ago? Uh,
5 or
so,
6. Yeah.
so yeah, unfortunately, he's talking out his butt quite a bit there on that one. But he's got a big platform, so people are going to listen when he talks.
Yeah.
I'm excited about new coaches in both the defensive backfield and in the linebacker core, because I feel like there was a large communication issue last year.
Yep.
And in previous years, when communication issues happened, they usually figured it out and then it kind of went away and then you were good. They never figured it out last year. Like it started off with the season where there were no communication issues, and then the season went on and it just started all kinds of communication issues somehow with almost all the same guys other than Cameron Sutton coming in.
Yep.
So that was very, very frustrating from a how do you go backwards in a communication aspect. And I think that's a large reason as to why they didn't hang on to the coaches in those positions.
Yep.
Is that's just not an acceptable thing. It's like a quarterback fumbling the snap over and over. It's not an acceptable thing. It's a basic part of the job. You have to be able to communicate with each other. You have to know where you're supposed to be and who's covering who.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. Fun fact though about Scott McGurley, he is native Pittsburgh, born in Newcastle. So that's exciting.
Yep.
He's coming back to the area.
Yeah.
James, before we go over the last topic we want to take a moment to talk about our sponsor. So a huge shout out, huge thank you to the Edinburgh Hotel Bar. Supporters of Steelers by the Lake include the Edinburgh Hotel Bar at 100 Meadville Street in downtown Edinburgh, providing a variety of lunch and dinner items every day, along with full service catering and private party accommodations. Details are available at 814-734-5103 or online at edinburghhotelbar.com. Edinburgh Hotel Bar is an awesome place that I like to go and hang out and get some good food, get some good grub. Always a good time to go watch a Steelers game. So if you guys get a chance next year, come on out. We'll be there at least once or twice, depending. So, James, last topic of the day, we got to talk rumors. We got to talk drama. We got to talk people that want to talk about talking about stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This situation being the quarterback room. And who Pittsburgh has on the team. Now, there's conversations that we might go after a veteran. There's conversations we might go after a younger, kind of unproven guy. James, let's talk about it.
Yep. Until Pittsburgh has a quarterback, we are going to have to put up with these rumors. The first big one being, will it be Aaron Rodgers? Obviously, the Jets have decided they're going to move on from him. It will most likely be a group package where if you get Aaron Rodgers, you also get Devontae Adams, which to me would be the most exciting thing about bringing Aaron Rodgers in. My big concern is that if you, for a second, thought that Aaron Rodgers was a good idea, I get it from his arm still looks good. He can process the field. He's tall. He's got a lot of the characteristics. He's a Super Bowl winner. Aaron has been such an issue off the field. Yep. And if you watched him on the field, he was way less mobile than Russell Wilson was last year. And a lot of folks want somebody more mobile than Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers would be a big step backwards in mobility. And Mike Tomlin has said over and over again that quarterback mobility is an incredibly important thing for him. So I don't think this is a direction that they should or will go, just because I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going in the wrong direction in his career and has been for a couple of years now.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. His last year in Green Bay, he went 8-9, threw for 64% completion rating with 12 interceptions, 26 touchdowns. And last year, the injury with the Jets. And then obviously this year, he had 28-11 touchdown to interception ratio, which again, not a good look. I mean, when you look back in in the past and see that he had a year with Green Bay where he threw for 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, followed by a 37-4. Not his best football, and arguably on a better team now than he was, in my opinion. I think the offensive talent on the New York Jets is underappreciated because they didn't do anything with it. And so I don't remember what the offensive line looked like on that Green Bay team. I know the Jets offensive line
Probably better.
Yeah, I know. It probably isn't the best, but you just still expected more out of him this year. It was not a good year for him.
Yeah, if you told me they were looking at a quarterback with 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, I would say if that's a young guy, I'm cool with it. If it's an old guy and it's one of his worst seasons, then I'm not cool with it. And it's where it's all a matter of perspective, So not a really awful ratio, not a great one either. So yeah, I'm out when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Now the other one that circulated more recently,
this quarterback has thrown 11 touchdowns and 7 interceptions last year.
Trevor Lawrence. And this one appears to be just one person that started this rumor that was just trying to make a name for himself. But we'll still talk about it because why not? I think it's important for people to understand almost more why this won't happen.
Yep.
And it all starts with salary cap for me. Regardless of Trevor Lawrence, the football player, he had some great years early on in his career, not so much the last couple. If they decided to move on from Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they were to trade him, it would cause $83 million in dead cap for this upcoming season. And they still wouldn't have a quarterback in a draft class that is not loaded with quarterbacks.
Yep.
So I would put this in the category of definitely not happening, but it's something that's important that we at least discuss a little bit.
Yeah. I understand the reason of discussing, but it's almost like a why are we talking about it thing. I get it. I understand.
Pittsburgh. I think it's more of an informative so that people can hear this and understand that it's not something that they should consider talking about in the future. That's just my perspective of it.
No, that's fine.
Debunking the trade theory.
Pittsburgh fans are so wild to get a quarterback and so quick to start rumors and this and that. I mean, it's not just Steelers fans; it's sports fans in general. But listen, Pittsburgh's gonna probably, unfortunately, draft a quarterback this year. It's probably gonna happen just because you want a young guy. It might be top 3. I don't think it'll be top 2 rounds. It might be round 3, 4. It might be round 6 or 7. I don't know.
Won't be 6.
That's true. We don't have a 6th-round pick unless we trade. But I also believe that we're going to bring somebody in free agency. Like you have to. You're going to bring a body in. You're going to bring a veteran in, someone who's been in the league for a little while, and who has the ability to start if you absolutely need them to. But it's going to be an interesting year with the quarterback room. I don't see Pittsburgh going out and trading for a quarterback. I don't think it's going to happen across the board because they don't see enough value in it long term to do it again. We saw the value with Russ because they ate I guess that wasn't a trade.
No. Yeah.
So, but even then, that it's because they were eating the money that was even a thing. So,
yeah.
It's none of this is going to happen. I'm not overly concerned about trade rumors.
The only one that I've heard that I would be okay with, just because I think he's probably got a little bit left in the tank still and still playing at a high level, is Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you'd have to give up for Matt Stafford. I don't think it would be a ton, but I think if that were something that the Rams were seriously considering, then it would be something that maybe Pittsburgh should possibly consider as well, just because he's still playing at a higher level. He's just been injured a ton lately. That's your only concern there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm with you. I think a quarterback absolutely could be in play for Pittsburgh this year. I'm glad to hear that they were very discouraged by what they saw from Jalen Milroe at the East-West Shrine Bowl, because I really didn't want them to go that direction. There's some rumors about Jackson Dart going around, who's a little bit more of your prototypical normal quarterback. I think that maybe what the appropriate plan this year should be is just, probably resign Fields because he'll be the less expensive option of the two. See about maybe bringing Josh Dobbs back as his backup because he can do the same skill set as what Fields does, except he's a very highly skilled backup quarterback and a very intelligent one that can work with somebody to help them see what's going on the field. Josh was always very good at that. And then I think, hey, maybe you throw a dart later on. Maybe one of those 7th round picks, you take a shot at somebody back there. But I would be out on doing a quarterback real early. Maybe the 4th round. But I feel like you just need to invest in some of these positions that are highly skilled rather than taking a shot at a group that's less talented than normal. I feel like if Pittsburgh wants to knock this draft out of the park, I feel like they almost have to take 2 defensive linemen in the first 3 rounds and a corner. If you do that, your defense can be completely transformed, and I think you can fill in what you need on offense and free agency.
Yeah.
A quarterback and a wide receiver and then maybe an offensive lineman, and good to roll, man. Yep. I don't think the offense really needs all that much.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Other than play calling, you can't fix that in the draft.
Nope.
But no, yeah. So would love to get your guys' opinions. Feel free to message us or comment on this video if you're watching on YouTube. Share your thoughts with us about all the things, the draft, the free agency, players getting cut, the new coach. Just let us know. We'd love to talk about that on the show. We can't thank you guys enough for listening. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Don't forget the 5-star reviews and Apple Podcasts. Make James here very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.
Steelers by